Hey there, my name's Ivan Idea, and I can engineer a great tour for you. Let's check this place out. San Francisco Bay is one of the greatest natural harbors in the world. The city lies on the northern tip of a hill-covered peninsula that sets off the bay from the Pacific Ocean. A small inlet opens up into the spectacular Bay Area surrounded by wooded hills and cities. This is Alcatraz Island, one of the most famous prisons ever built. It's no longer in use, but once held some of America's most hardened criminals and was believed to be escape-proof. Of the 23 men who tried to escape, all but 5 were recaptured. Those 5 are presumed drowned, but no one ever found their bodies. San Francisco began as a Spanish colony, but was annexed by the United States in 1846. When gold was discovered near San Francisco in 1848, the settlement became a boom town. The city was built on a series of steep hills, and cable cars were invented to haul people and goods up and down the steep slopes. Despite the earthquakes that have rocked the area, San Francisco has grown to be a thriving cosmopolitan city. This area is known as the Presidio. In 1775, Spanish explorers established this military compound along the bay shore and built a 13-foot adobe wall to protect against raids. Some of the Presidio's original buildings remain today. The Golden Gate Bridge is one of the world's greatest engineering masterpieces. Designed by Joseph Strauss and built in 1937, the bridge is made of 10,000 tons of steel, 80,000 miles of cable, and is supported by 2 towers that are 746 feet tall. The Golden Gate Bridge has a clear span of over half a mile and is a symbol of the country's expansive, pioneering spirit. So long!
707次航班即将起飞，飞往中国。
Hiya! Let's tour the Great Wall of China. The wall began as a series of independent barriers, connected and built by several Chinese emperors over many generations. In the 12th century, the Mongols breached the massive wall and conquered China. After ruling for about 100 years, the Mongols were forced back by the Ming Dynasty, which rebuilt the wall and gave it the appearance we see today. The Great Wall of China was started by Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi in the 3rd century BC. Over the course of 20 centuries, various emperors drafted millions of soldiers and laborers to complete the task. Talk about a group effort. The Great Wall is 2,150 miles across the Chinese countryside, and its walls are so thick that you and 9 of your friends could walk side by side across the top. It's the only man-made object that can be seen from space, and engineers, like me, call it the greatest construction effort ever undertaken. The Great Wall is built of earth, stone, timber, tile, and brick. Anything the builders could get their hands on. Once the builders had the materials, they raised the 2 outer faces and filled the space in between with rubble. Towers were added to guard vulnerable points, as the wall follows the natural contours of the earth. The Great Wall was built in an effort to hold back hordes of Mongol warriors invading China from the north. The Mongols were nomadic tribesmen who constantly sought to expand their territory. The Great Wall marked the northern boundary of Chinese civilization and influence. So long!
أهلا عزيزي المسافر، من فضلك زر النيل أثناء زيارتك لمصر.
Salam! Try not to get sand in your shoes as we check out the Great Pyramids at Giza. Off in the distance, you can see the city of Cairo, the capital of Egypt and the largest Arab city in the world. The town was settled in 642 AD along the banks of the Nile and has grown to a vast city of 13 million people. The nation of Egypt owes its existence to the Nile River. The fertile river valley covers less than 4% of the country, but supports 99% of the population. For centuries, the Egyptians have relied on the Nile for agriculture and transport. I guess you could say they know how to go with the flow. The Great Pyramid of Cheops was built by Cheops himself, who is also known as Khufu, and who ruled Egypt around 2570 BC. The actual work was done by farmers and slaves, and in order to complete the pyramid during Khufu's life, they had to move 1,100 limestone blocks every day for 23 years. Behold, the Great Pyramid of Cheops, the largest pyramid in the world. It's really big. 479 feet high and made of 2.3 million limestone blocks. This awesome structure just outside the city of Cairo hides 3 burial chambers, including a tomb for the pharaoh. The pyramids were built as tombs. The Egyptians believed that the perfect structure of the pyramid would protect the body and soul of their king. The kings wanted the afterlife to be luxurious, so their tombs were decorated with pictures and filled with food, drink, and countless treasures. That's what I call going in style. This famous statue is the Sphinx, a creature with a lion's body and a human head. Its body was carved from a single, gigantic block of limestone. The Sphinx inspired a Greek myth in which the amazing creature devoured travelers who could not solve its riddle. So long!
El vuelo 415 está a punto de salir para Panamá. Que disfrute del vuelo.
Hola, amigo! Welcome to the Panama Canal. Before the canal was completed in 1914, a sea voyage from New York to San Francisco took 1 month and covered 13,000 miles. The canal shortened the trip to about 10 days and 5,000 miles. Millions of pounds of dynamite were used to cut through a narrow 50-mile strip of land separating the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. In the distance, you can see Panama City, the country's capital, as well as its political and commercial center. Many of the city's older buildings retain the architecture of the original Spanish colonists, including the cathedral and the Church of San Jose. This is the Panama Canal Administration Building. From this building, the top canal management officials keep watch over the canal, which is one of the most important waterways in the world. If you look closely, you can see the flag atop Ancon Hill. The flag of Panama is a symbol of national pride. In 1903, American President Theodore Roosevelt encouraged the Panamanians to declare their independence from Colombia. 2 days later, the U.S. government officially recognized Panama and signed a treaty lasting until 1999 for use of the not yet completed canal. Connecting the two edges of the canal's entrance is the Bridge of the Americas, the only permanent bridge spanning the Panama Canal. It was completed in 1962 and soars 384 feet above the canal's Pacific entrance. The Panama Canal is the busiest waterway in the world and services 12,500 ships per year. The toll for crossing the canal is calculated by the ship's weight. The highest toll was paid by a cruise liner, and one of the lowest tolls ever was paid by a swimmer in 1926. To connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, engineers built a series of concrete locks to transport ships across different water levels. Water is drawn from 3 artificial lakes to either drain or fill the locks, raising or lowering each ship as it moves to the next water level. So long!
Good morning. Flight 916 is now arriving in Australia.
Good day, mate. Let me introduce you to Sydney, Australia. Check out Sydney Harbor. It's officially known as Port Jackson, and it's the largest natural harbor in the world. On weekends, the harbor is carpeted with the sails of hundreds of yachts. Not exactly what I'd call clear sailing. This is the Sydney Harbor Bridge, affectionately known as a coat hanger to locals. The bridge holds 8 traffic lanes and 2 sets of railroad tracks. At its highest point, the bridge sits 436 feet above the water. That's what I call a highway. Over here you can see Fort Denison, built in 1846 to defend Sydney Harbor. Convicts used to live in the fort, and sometimes they hung from its gallows. When the Australian government sponsored a contest to design the Sydney Opera House in 1956, Danish architect Jan Utzon breezed through it by designing a shell-like structure meant to mirror the many sailboats on the harbor. The roof is made of 1 million ceramic tiles, and beneath them are 5 separate halls for operas, symphonies, and theater. Have a look at Sydney Tower, but don't strain your neck. The tower is 1,000 feet above street level. It's the tallest building in Australia and requires 56 cables to keep it stable. That's quite a high wire act. In 1770, an English explorer named Captain Cook raised a British flag over Sydney Harbor. England promptly turned Sydney and all of Australia into a colony for exiled British criminals. But the convicts managed to turn their prison into a paradise, and today, Sydney is a thriving metropolis. So long!
Vol 324. Part maintenant pour la France.
Bonjour! What do you say we promenade around Paris, France? Set off from the classical buildings of the original city is La Défense, a city of skyscrapers set away from the heart of historical Paris. Since the area is exempt from Paris' strict building laws, you'll find more daring, modern architecture here, including La Grande Arche, which is 35 stories high and shaped like a hollow cube. Ah, Paris. The capital of France and located on the Seine River, Paris is often called the City of Lights. It's also one of the most romantic cities in the world, where ancient buildings and cobblestone streets mix with modern fashion and chic restaurants. Don't be shy, check out the Palais de Chaillot. As you can see, the Palais is made up of 2 wings and 2 pavilions decorated with large bronze sculptures. The walls are inscribed with text by the poet Paul Valéry, and inside you'll find 4 museums and the widest selection of film classics in the world. The history of Paris dates back to 53 BC, when the Roman army conquered the Parisi, who lived in a small island village on the river Seine. The Romans were succeeded by the Franks, who named the island Paris. The city became a center of culture and wealth, and even endured a violent revolution in 1789. Today, Paris is one of the major cultural and business centers of Europe. This amazing wrought iron building is the Eiffel Tower, one of the most famous landmarks in Paris. The tower was named after its designer, Gustave Eiffel. It's made of 18,000 separate pieces, held together by 2.5 million rivets. At 990 feet high, you could say climbing the Eiffel Tower is a riveting experience. Over here we have l'École Militaire, or the Military Academy. It was founded in 1751 to be a school for future generals, and boy, did it ever work! One of its first graduates was a fellow named Napoleon, who became a general at the age of 24 and went on to conquer most of Europe. So long! Hey, thanks for calling. I never get weary of touring Nigeria. The people of Nigeria represent about 250 different ethnic groups, and most have their own languages and customs. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa, which has caused crowding in many Nigerian towns. In the main city of Lagos, skyscrapers rise up next to poor shanty towns. Small villages like this one offer an alternative to the crowded urban life. Almost half the population of Nigeria is Muslim, but rich local religions and traditions survive, especially in these smaller villages. Nigerian society includes extended families, which means that all kinspeople are treated like close brothers and sisters. Not far from this village is Lagos, the largest city in Nigeria and its former capital. It is built on and around an island and has become a colorful and crowded metropolis. The native inhabitants of Nigeria developed rich cultures and complex political systems long before Europeans arrived. In the 19th century, British colonists conquered the region, but Nigeria gained its independence in 1960. About 1 out of every 4 Africans lives in Nigeria, located on the west coast of Africa. Fueled by the oil industry, Nigeria developed a strong economy. Declines in oil prices have caused severe depressions, but Nigeria still has great economic potential. So long!